the most pressing one is we have to reduce our CO2 emissions. The energy sector is heading in the right direction now, with more renewables coming on stream all the time. And the next big challenge is decarbonisation of transport. We must support public transport and make the case that Welsh Government should be investing in public transport rather than the black route for the M4. We know that carbon capture technology is still only a pipe dream. So in terms of the second focus is to capture more carbon with trees. We have to plant more trees and we have to take more care of our soil, because a well cared for soil will hold far more carbon than one that's been degraded and is eroding away. So as I said earlier, we have to start planting trees everywhere, every last scrap of ground, and up in the upland farms to help prevent flooding. And I think that's it.
Which two issues? I think, as I said earlier, they're all connected, so we've got to be clever with this. And we've been talking about this a lot in Cardiff lately, and we had a social in the Vale of Glamorgan recently with food and a big roundtable discussion on what people wanted to campaign on, what people thought was important. Climate change is obviously the big one. Extinction Rebellion were in the news that week, so it was what everyone was talking about. So we're looking at creating a new campaign for the new year, we're working on this in Cardiff, that highlights climate change, the climate crisis, but with an issue that campaigners can get their teeth into, but also relates to all the other issues. So what we've chosen, which I would say, and Alex touched on it, one of the important areas for us to focus on, is transport. So we're going to organise a campaign. On one level, street level, it's going to be about Cardiff buses, decarbonising them, making them more accessible. Something simple that fits on a leaflet, gives new members, activists, something to be doing. But we're also generating some materials to go with this, press releases that cover the whole area of transport, and link that into climate change, and link that we're going to combine that with a call out that Cardiff Council, the Vale Council and Rhondda and Taff Council follow Bristol's example and recognise the climate emergency. So I think by choosing one focus like transport, it can be adapted for so many issues. It plays into the 20s plenty, the safer streets issues, it plays into air pollution, environmental degradation. It plays into social justice issues. It's no mistake that the worst air pollution hotspots are in poorer areas. So it gives us so much scope, and I think that's what we need to look at when we're campaigning, joining the dots, making people who live in poor quality housing might not have thought about the Green Party, but we start talking to them about, is it right that you live next to this in Penarth? It's an area of air quality management area. The area is actually unsafe under European rules. So it's a lot for us to get our teeth in there. If I'm having to limit it to two issues, I'd say the other one, which we can be positive about as well, is energy. The scope for renewables and green energy in Wales is massive. The disenchantment with nuclear is growing. It's another issue which people, sometimes we complain that people identify us with a few single issues, but this is one issue that they do identify us with, and they do know that we speak from the heart and have genuine policies on this. So that would be my two focuses, transport and energy, because with them you can link to everything else and always go back to the important one of climate change.
Okay, I think mine would be, first of all, the M4, very urgent. There is a vote taking place, so this is not a long-term thing necessarily, well, we hope. But there is a vote taking place on the 4th. Obviously, that's really, really urgent, and we want to make sure that the M4 extension is not going to go ahead, especially the black route. And I've been working on a local level with Friends of the Earth Cymru, for example, to ensure that we can mobilise people for protests taking place on that day, and also with Bristol Green Party, and hopefully we're going to see some of them there as well. So I think that's really, really urgent, and I think the way that we can best sort of assist on this wider issue, we are obviously in a bit of a fringe as a small political party, but there are a lot of environmental organisations, and we've been working with also the Calm campaign in Gwent. We've been doing a lot of work with others, and I think that's sometimes where our voice is best placed. Just working with others on local level is really, really important, and this M4 campaign is a really good example of that. Secondly, on a more sort of longer term basis, I can't decide between air pollution and energy, because air pollution is like a huge issue, especially where I live, as in many other towns and cities in Wales. So air pollution is a really, really big thing. Again, I really believe on that sort of working on a local level with other organisations when you still don't quite have a voice. But I really think that again, the best answer to this is getting local councillors, because with air pollution we need to enable councils to actually take action within the limits they've got and within the limits of austerity, and Green Party members have often been the most innovative in these situations. Yeah, energy, I was going to say in terms of the tidal lagoon, but I'm kind of like, that's the third thing now, but in terms of a sort of getting more renewables in Wales, we met up with the tidal lagoon power, I can't remember the company name, but I never remembered it, in the summer, and I think that sort of having that conversation with them and actually asking how we can help and how we can sort of, what came out of that was just, you know, circulating the messages and supporting when they are right and when the government is wrong, and making sure that people hear that. I think those are really valuable things that we can do on a small scale.
I think the others have more or less said it all, but I will have my little go at setting some priorities. So I think my first one would be on the issue of toxic pollution and reducing that, because we've got ample evidence now that this is a really, really serious problem, whether it's from the pollution that's caused by petrol engines, motor vehicles, or the even worse threat caused by some of the dirtier diesels which are polluting our roads. And we've also got ample evidence now that this is not just a harmful toxic effect for the population as a whole, but that in many locations especially it's affecting the younger generation more seriously than adults. So you know, hotspots around children's schools and this kind of thing are becoming much more something that people are aware of. So I think that's an issue in itself, and also because it has a lot of other issues that link into it and feed into it. So my other one, I think, apart from reducing the toxic emissions, would be looking at all the kind of things which cause that, and undoubtedly one of the biggest issues is getting more motor traffic off our roads and having a more resilient, sustainable system of public transport. So that does mean, as we've all agreed, no black route for the M4 relief road, and yes to spending more of the money that would have been spent on that on public transport instead. And there are many, many solutions. We haven't got time yet to discuss them all, but I stand here in Swansea. I came here past the railway station, and I could see the gantries that should have been supporting the electric cables that would have brought electrification to Swansea, and which was supposed to be extended to the Valley's routes as well. Instead, what have we got? We've got a situation now where the current, or the new transport franchise for the rail system in Wales is going to be using some of the most dirty, polluting diesel engines well into the term of that franchise, instead of giving us the cleaner electrification that we were initially promised. So that's a big thing that we need to be campaigning on. And I think that people who are stuck on dirty, smelly, overcrowded, late and often very slow trains on the Valley's routes particularly would resonate very much with that kind of message coming from a political party that could see a way of delivering it. And I think, what was the other thing I was going to say? One more thing to add, and I think it's important for the Green Party to say this, because I don't think enough other parties are saying it seriously enough. There was a report out recently from Sustrans which said that one of the reasons why more people are not using traffic-free cycle routes is because of the disgraceful state of some of the surfaces of those routes, and this applies apparently to Wales as much as the rest of the UK. So there's an urgent need, if we're going to get more people out of their cars, out on their bikes, to put more money into that area as well.